Hello, everyone. Welcome to our meeting on the Southern California Plastic Surgery Cookbook. And tonight we have a very special guest, a very dear friend of mine who I think we met way back in 2017. That's when I think I first met you. And that was when you wrote your first book. Then after that, I actually met you in person in 2018 at the Learn
The
California
walk.
Walk to
Yep.
fight lymphedema and lymphatic diseases. And we actually did the whole 5K together.
We walked the whole 5K
So,
together.
yeah, we had a conversation and it was a great, for me, we clicked and we had a lot of chemistry. So I am so happy to see you. I wish I could see you in person. But of course, we have to be socially distanced and whatnot. So for those that do not know who Kathleen Lisson is, Kathleen Lisson is a board certified in therapeutic massage and bodywork and is a certified lymphedema therapist. She owns Solace Massage and Mindfulness, has taught classes at IPSB Massage College in San Diego, and is the author of Swollen, Bloated, and Puffy, which is this book. I don't know if you can see it.
No, I don't think I can see it.
See,
Yeah,
like that.
this book.
Okay, that book.
Yep.
And that's basically on lymphedema self-care. And then she's
Yep.
also the author of the Lipedema Treatment Guide.
Yep.
And she's also the author of the Plastic Surgery Recovery Handbook.
Yep.
So plastic surgeons, chiropractors, naturopaths, all kinds of people refer clients to Kathleen for manual lymphatic drainage and other treatments. She's also spoken at the 2018 Fat Disorders Resource Society Conference and has completed lymphedema therapy advanced and review class at the Boldy Clinic in Germany. So welcome, 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 Kathleen. I'm so excited to talk to you. I'll just let you take over, talk about what you want to talk about.
Yeah. Wonderful.
Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot to, for our disclaimer, this is not medical advice. Neither you nor I are nutritionists or dietitians. I'm certainly not a medical professional. I'm just a patient advocate. And Kathleen and I have no disclosures. We have no financial relationship. It's just two people trying to spread information about nutrition and the impact that it may have on surgery, inflammation, all of that, healing. So take it away, Kathleen.
Thank you. Yeah, and that was going to be the first thing I was going to say is what I am not. Veronica said what I am, and what I am not is I'm not a registered dietitian. I'm not a nutritionist. I don't have any educational background in this. What I saw was a need in my clients. I help people here in San Diego, most people with lymphedema diagnosis for ongoing care, and also people after plastic surgery like liposuction, Brazilian butt lift, tummy tuck, my makeovers, facelifts. And one of the missing pieces in the puzzle is they're experiencing these symptoms after plastic surgery. And there's research actually by plastic surgeons that says the nutrition before and after surgery helps. It makes a difference in healing of what foods you eat. But what's not out there is a book clearly telling people, what are some options, what has the research, whatever researchers published in journals actually found. So that's the book that I wanted to write. I talked to all dietitians over the past 2 years and tried to see, is there already a book out there? Can I please get this book for my clients? And I really didn't see it. So I wanted to have a resource, which I made, which is the Southern California Plastic Surgery Cookbook. This is available on Amazon. A resource that's targeted specifically to what people should eat. So I will say that there are some resources already. And I really liked, so this is the book that I was talking to my clients about before I wrote mine. This is called Eat, Drink, Heal. It's by Dr. Buford. I believe he's out of Colorado, and it's really great. And one of the positive parts of this book is that he goes down the list of supplements that he recommends that his clients take. So he's a plastic surgeon, and he has a strong, these supplements are what you should take. Now, what I saw in my clientele is pretty much throughout the industry, your plastic surgeon is going to tell you, you can't take supplements 2 weeks before surgery and 2 weeks after surgery. And sometimes it's longer than that. But there is this entire month period right around where you're actually needing all this nutrition to heal, that your doctor is going to say you only need to have whole foods, whole foods. You can't have supplements. You can't just take a bunch of pills, because they don't, some supplements, some things that you would take, if you ate them as a food, like if you got some omega-3 fatty acids in it because you ate a piece of fish, it's less intense than if you take a fish oil supplement. So and there's a few things like that, like garlic. Like if you take a garlic pill, that's a lot more garlic, the active ingredient of garlic, than just actually eating garlic in your food. So that's
Right.
why they want to keep you away from supplements, because some things that are safe, if you eat them in their whole form, are way more intense and potentially not safe to you, because they have different effects. And one of the chief effects they're looking at, your physician is looking at, is as a blood thinner. So if your blood becomes too thin and you can't clot fast enough after surgery, that's a real issue. So that's why they want to take you off of all the supplements, instead of like going through them with a fine tooth comb. Like they're just like, don't take anything, just eat foods. And then the foods are not going to harm you. It's the really concentrated part of it in the supplement. So that's why I was like, well, I can't give any book to my clients, because the surgeon is just going to come right back and say, like, I told you not to eat supplements. And then the clients are still going to be like, well, how do I get it in a food, in a meal that I can eat? So that's why I put together the recipes. There's recipes in the back here. And I put together the information that I read. A lot of research studies. PubMed has been my friend for the past 4 years. In all the books, you see there's a lot of research studies. Yeah. And then for this book, I really felt it was important to get a dietitian to look at it before I gave it to my clients. So I had Jean LaMantia look at it, and she's a dietitian. She's written actually several books, and books on lymphedema and diet. So she was like perfect. Oh, I met her, at the NLN conference. We knew her. We knew she was good people, like one of us. So I said, hey, can you take a look at this? And she took a look at it, and she made sure that I was in the right direction. And then she actually wrote the introduction to it. So this is the first thing you actually read in the book is by a dietitian. So that made me a lot more confident, because, like, as I say, I'm not a nutritionist. I'm not a registered dietitian. I'm just someone who wants to fill the needs that my clients are telling me about. So if we're going to take, if you only have 5 minutes to listen, this is all the gist of what you need to know. If you only have 5 minutes to dedicate to, like, what should I eat after surgery? Jean tells us pretty clearly we need protein, we need vitamin C, and we need zinc. So those are the three things that the dietitian told me. This is what people generally need before and after surgery, and it really helps with wound healing. And then the protein, the idea of the protein should be you get regular little portions of protein throughout the day. So you're not saying, oh, I'm just going to take, like, one protein shake, or eat a giant steak at night and then not have any other protein the rest of the day. So the regular protein throughout the day is the best way to get the protein. For what happens with plastic surgery, the biggest thing people talk about is the swelling. There's a lot of swelling. So there's two things that we need to kind of focus on. And the first one is low sodium. So this is a great, it's kind of, it's a used book. It's an old book. Like, this stuff's on the internet now. So we can definitely look at the label, like turn whatever we're having around and look at the nutrition label on the back of it and see if there's sodium in the food. And you would be surprised at the foods that are your favorites that don't taste salty actually have a lot of sodium in it. And that's one of the hugest issues is the processed foods that are really easy for us to eat because we're not feeling too well after surgery are often part of the processing is adding salt into them. So you really have to look if you want to lower sodium in your diet and is appropriate for you. You really have to look at those labels. Canned soup is a huge issue. So
But
much sodium
I
in
have to
canned soup.
interject here. It's just, I'm like, I'm doing all I can to sit on my hands because I feel like I went through this whole journey with this recent illness that I had. And
Yeah.
specifically to canned soup, not only did my throat swell up, which, compounded my swallowing issue, but
Yeah.
my legs, my lymphedema blew up. And
Yeah.
that's exactly why, because you've just explained it. I was eating soup because soup is supposed to be good when you can't swallow and you're trying to soothe your throat, but
Yeah.
it's so high in sodium.
Yep.
So I was just basically hurting myself.
Yep. And that's actually a great segue into kind of the soul of the book is soup. We know in our hearts that soup is good for us, and we've learned from our grandparents, from our ancestors, that soup is good for us, soup is healing, but it's the soup that they made on the stove. And what we're trying to do is replace that with soup that's from a can. And that's where we get the additional sodium, because if you start and make the soup from scratch, you can make a low sodium soup. Absolutely. So that's one of the things that really inspired the book was my surgery. I had reconstructive surgery on my cheekbone 10 years ago after a skiing accident. And they went through my mouth to get to my cheekbone. So that's where the incision is, and the inside of my mouth. And so what they told me after surgery was like, oh, eat soft foods for a few days and like have fun, like you're fine, like you survived the surgery, you look great. Eat some soft foods, and then when you don't need to eat soft foods anymore, then like that's all we have to say. And there was a lot of focus in the hospital that I should keep food down. Like, you get first the water and then the broth. And if you don't throw up the broth, like, they try to feed you something. And as soon as your digestives, like as soon as you poop, like you're out of the hospital, they don't need to see you anymore because, everything works. And they're only interested, like as long as you're pretty much alive, like that you can go home and do the rest of the healing yourself. And there was no further information. It was very frustrating to me because that I ended up, and I tell the story in the book, I ended up at the drugstore with my person who's driving me home, getting the prescription for me for my pain pills. And I said like, oh, I think I'll get like one of the liquid drinks that you give to seniors, because that must be perfectly balanced nutrition and so good for me. And then like if you turn that around and look at the label, it's terrifying that we're feeding stuff like that to our parents. But what I should have been doing is focusing on like, what would my parents actually feed me when I'm sick? What would your grandmother actually feed you? What are some stories that come from your family? So with my family, it was chicken noodle soup. I also tell the story of a friend of mine, a friend of my husband's from his college that got sick, and he was getting better. And because he was from India, he had a totally different perspective on it. And he was in the hospital talking about khichdi. He was talking about Indian foods and that he knew were good for health. They call them good for health. And he was talking about how he can't wait to get out of the hospital because they were going to buy a bunch of foods at the Indian store, all these fresh vegetables, and he was going to cook all these wonderful meals to make himself healthier afterwards. And I'm just looking at him in amazement because I was like, I was really excited about mashed potatoes. Like we don't have that. I wasn't focused on that cultural history that we all have. I did not tap into that beauty. So what I wanted from the cookbook is I put the khichdi recipe in there. I put a Spanish recipe for the chicken soup. I put all these different recipes in there, but I want it to be an inspiration, because the true recipe lies in your heart. It lies in you remembering, what did your grandmother do when you were sick? How can you help it? And the answer is, like what you said, it's soup, but it's just, we have to make the soup the way that they wanted to make it. We have to use the ingredients that they would make. It's unfortunate that in America, you can't get that kind of stuff from the grocery store.
And
like,
that's why
Grandma's
your
chicken soup
book,
is not sold.
and that's why your book, that just the intro itself resonated so well with me, because during my illness, I was so frustrated. I was dropping weight like a pound a day. I was afraid my hair was going to fall out. I was worried about whether I was getting, enough protein. I'd had a couple of those Ensures, and I saw the ingredients and I was horrified. But I started to turn a corner when I made my own soup, the way my dad would have made it, or the way my mom would have made it. And I don't know if you've frozen, but when I started to make it from scratch is when I started to get better without all the sodium and stuff. So your book is just, I mean, it was perfect timing for me. I just can't say that enough.
Yeah.
But
so some of the books that I used that really inspired me are here, and I talk about them in the book, especially in the herbal section. There's wonderful resources out there, and this is native to the Southwest, to Southern California. This is what the people would eat using the plants that grow native in the land. And there's a lot of wisdom in this book. And then herbal cures is something that I really liked, and I'll keep this book for the next time I have any other plastic surgery, because this is Irish wisdom. So my ancestors are from Ireland, so this is what this is what your family would make you as far as an herbal cure for any illness that you would get if you were in Ireland. So that really inspired me. And then, so he talks about, J.O., in this book, he talks about several different herbs that you can get that, like, we've heard about, but he talks about how they're used in the indigenous culture here. So we hear a lot about arnica, and it's usually in a cream. And then we know that if you go to the store, if you go to the restaurant, you can always get the chamomile tea. And it's like, it's kind of around, but I never really understood from an indigenous perspective how it was used in the area in which it was discovered. So this was a really great book, and I used a lot of that wisdom there's an herbal section where I talk about how you can some of the ideas, some of the wisdom that has come from these other books on how you can use herbal teas to help you. And again, aside from the salt, another huge thing with the swelling is you can use diuretics. So as long as it's not, so diuretics, we don't want diuretics for lymphedema diagnosis, but if what the swelling that you're having is after surgery, you can use a diuretic. And that is something that activates in your body to increase urination. So taking some of the swelling off of your body. And there's a lot of natural herbs that will do that. And then there's a lot of, I won't say the brand because I don't recommend this brand. I just get people bringing me and asking all the time, like lymph pills, lymph drops, like, should I use this? Is it good? Is it bad? And I don't want to go brand to brand, but what you can do with each individual one is you can see what the herbs are that they're actually putting in the pill, putting in the drop, and then use the internet or use this book and see what herbs, what they're actually possibly used for according to indigenous wisdom. And that's a really great way to see for yourself, are these good or are they bad? It's not the brand, it's actually what they're made of that's important. And you definitely need to do your research. It's not something I can recommend to you or anyone else should be recommending to you, and then you just take a pill without looking at it. you have to see why it's in there, and then ask your surgeon if it's all right to take it, because your surgeon's really the one that's in charge. And then that's actually it started a little bit earlier, but this is Trader Joe's. It's a really popular, it is Trader Joe's. Yeah, it's a really popular grocery store in California and the West Coast. And again, this is like a herbal supplement detox cleansing blend. So what really is detox? And then you can see, because you're looking at what's on the side, and then if you look some of this up, half of them is diuretics and the other half make you poop. So I don't know that you're really detoxing. This isn't necessarily healthy for you, but having these type of resources and doing this type of research and seeing what's in here and what is the effect in my body, it's not actually making you healthier. It's just making you pee and poop more. So you need to know before you take something whether that's really what you want to do with it. And then you need to ask your surgeon if that's right for you. So one of the huge parts, that's a good segue into one of the huge things that the plastic surgeons do look at, which is there is a risk of complications, increased complications, if you enter into surgery malnourished. So the biggest thing that they should ask is, have you eaten 50% less calories than you should usually eat over the past week? And then if you really cut down the calories, that's malnutrition. So I see a lot of a certain sizable number of people who are going down into liposuction, into Brazilian butt lifts, tummy tucks, that the surgeon has told them they need to be a certain BMI, they need to lose a certain amount of weight to qualify for the surgery. Which is valid because there's less complications if you're at a lower BMI. But they're seeing that surgery is like 3 weeks away and they still have 20 pounds to lose. And they think that the only way to successfully get there is to go on like some intermittent fasting or just like this radical reduction of calories. And it's not appropriate before surgery. And it's shown in research, which I cite in the book, that the surgeons are saying it's not, because it ends up, if the person doesn't have enough calories in their body, they can't heal. So it's not good to go on restrictive diets before. It's not good to go on restrictive diets ever, but it's especially not good to go on a restrictive diet before, a crash diet before or after, especially immediately after surgery. It's not what you want to do. So if you feel swollen, like the answer is not to like cut calories to try to cut, lower the weight on the scale.
Gotcha. So I wanted to talk about some of the other things like the nausea and the it's
that's
some
fantastic.
of that I've had some of that. Like I said, I've had like 9 surgeries in my life. So I think one or more of these things has happened to me post-op, and so I think that it's fairly relevant. But these are great topics that you hit on as far as, the nausea, probiotics and enzymes. I just recently delved into that as well because of my digestive issues. So would you hit on some of those topics?
Yep. Let's hit on probiotics, because I would love to talk about nausea all the time. Because there's so many different aspects. I've been dealing with finding ways to help reduce nausea. And nausea really, it comes from that before I was a lymphedema therapist, I was an oncology massage therapist. And that's one of the major side effects of the chemotherapy cancer treatment is nausea. And if you have nausea, you can't get food. And if you can't get food in your system, you're not healthy enough to do another round of chemotherapy. So nausea is straight from when I was 9 years old and my mother was diagnosed with metastatic breast cancer. Like, I understand that nausea, is an issue, and we can't just push it aside. It's super interesting. So let's talk about probiotics first. So most people know, a lot more people know recently than used to, that if you're taking an antibiotic, and often they'll be prescribed prophylactically, that is cleaning out your entire system. It's killing the bacteria, and we love antibiotics, and you need to take the entire course of antibiotics, or else you're just breeding like even stronger diseases. But after that, your gut health is different because those colonies have been killed by the antibiotics. So you need to use a combination, it's called symbiotic. So it's a combination of prebiotics and probiotics. So probiotics, again, it doesn't have to be in a pill, and prebiotics don't have to be in a pill. So I'm drinking the raw kombucha, and that's an option. Kefir is an option for a probiotic. You can get the yogurt. I really like the Greek yogurt that has the active bacteria in it. And again, it's what's in, if you look deep enough, you'll find it in every single, most cultures. It's like, so if you're Korean, it's kimchi. That's your probiotic. I'm part Irish, part German, and the German part is sauerkraut. If you get the sauerkraut, it's that fermentation. Many, many cultures have that idea in it where they have at least one thing that's fermented, and that's that natural probiotic, which is great because the instinct is to just get something in a pill. But again, your surgeon may tell you no supplements whatsoever. And then prebiotics are what feeds your probiotics. So that's all the good things that if you're making some whole foods, those are probably in it, like the onions, artichokes. These are all things that are actually feeding the bacteria. So you have to get the bacteria in there. You have to give them something to eat. Then they'll colonize. And then that's how you revitalize the gut. So it's very interesting. I have more in it in the book, and there's definitely more in it you can find like probiotic food lists online, probiotic recipes, and probiotics are in Whole Foods are in your grocery store. So it's definitely easy to get them. So nausea, I love talking about nausea. So one of the interesting, first thing I learned about nausea is the idea that you can help your post-op nausea preoperatively. So I learned this in the book, Peggy Huddleston's book, Prepare for Surgery, Heal Faster. And I took her class so I can give that class to other people. So her idea is that she's proven through research. She worked, she went to Harvard, and then she worked with the Harvard hospitals to do this research to prove all these things, her plan that she wants you to do before surgery. But the one tiny part that deals with nausea is they want you to think before you go under, think of the most delicious food that you absolutely want after surgery, especially if you can't have it. So, if it's a greasy cheeseburger that you haven't had in like 10 years, but like this is the dream food, and you're not going to ask for the greasy cheeseburger afterwards because they're not going to give you a greasy cheeseburger in the hospital, but you're putting that thought in your mind right as you're going under. They have found that when you come back out of surgery in the recovery room, they report less nausea because they were primed to think of whatever your favorite French fries, whatever it is, and because that thought is getting the digestive juices going. And we all know that we're Pavlovian dogs, just like dogs are. Like if we start talking, if you smell food, if you think of food, the salivation is starting, right? You have salivation in your mouth. That's the start of the digestive system. And your digestive system is listening to your brain and saying, oh, food must be coming because we're thinking about food. So it's going to get that whole process started. And it's a really interesting story she tells, because she said at first these nurses in the recovery room were pissed off at this because they were like, I don't have time to talk to these clients about how they can't have a hamburger for 10 minutes. Like, why are you telling them this? And then, so she went back and said, yes, but how much medication are you giving them for nausea? And they're like, oh, it's going down because they're priming. We can prime, and it's this natural, any chance I think that we can use less medication on ourselves is something that a lot of people in Southern California are very interested in. So that's one of the things. The other thing you could do that's the same thing is the chewing gum. Chewing gum, it helps. A lot of times they'll have the postoperative ileus. They won't be able to poop for 4 or 5 days afterwards. And if you start chewing gum again, it's getting the digestive system started, so you'll be able to take that first poop. Another one after surgery is the smoothie. So I have several smoothies recipes in the book, And sometimes if the food is a lower temperature, and if it's a smoothie, you can get like your cup with a lid on it and suck through a straw. You won't smell it as much, and that you might be able to get the food down. And again, the other tip is like, if you can have someone else cook for you at a time where you're in another room and you can't smell it, if the smell of food is giving you nausea, that might be something to do. Like eat the food room temperature or cold, and make sure that you're not in there with the cooking smells while it's cooking. So those are some of my tips on nausea.
Wow, that was extensive.
Yeah. I love curing. I love stopping nausea.
I didn't think about it. Now, one of the things that I also identified with was the recovery waters and teas and organizing my kitchen. So I went and I bought all kinds of teas to try and address my symptoms and stuff. So I was very happy to see that you had covered it as a topic as well in this book. Did you want to speak on to that as well?
Yes. So this is the recovery waters. I first looked at the flavored waters like 7 or 8 years ago. I used to work for the state of New York in an office before I switched careers and moved across the country. And I had a coworker, and her name was Bernadette, and we had this. One of us came up and found this recipe called Sassy Water. And it's like water with some stuff like lemon and stuff put into it, so it's tasty. And we were always having a problem with work was fast paced. You would forget to drink, and then you would like have to drink all at once. And then,
right.
And then but you couldn't, so we needed our water because we were getting dehydrated in the office. We really needed this water. So we came up with this thing where you get like the water pitcher, and you put the Sassy Water, you put like the cucumbers and I think maybe like mint, and there's all different recipes. It's whichever one you want. So like it could be ginger, it could be mint, cucumber. I have a couple recipes in the book. And then you just let that water sit, and the longer it sits, the stronger it gets. And then so it's something that's tasty. A lot of people say like they don't drink enough water, like it doesn't taste good, it doesn't taste like anything. So make it taste good without resorting to, adding sugar and a bunch of fake stuff to it to make it into like Kool-Aid like we were a kid. That's the idea. And the other thing about hydration specifically, so this is a bottle I got from Amazon, so you can find these, and I don't know if you can tell, but it has like different like 2 p.m., 3 p.m., 4 p.m., 5 p.m., 6 p.m. So like how much you're supposed to drink. See, it says 4:30 because that's like when I got out of my last massage. So I know that I have to drink more. I should drink some at 5. I should drink some at 6. So I know that I'm behind, and I know how much I need to drink. And then you just fill this twice a day. And then this helps because the other big thing with hydration is you can't just drink all the ounces all at once because your body needs an electrolyte balance. It has a balance of electrolytes, and if you get too much water in the system, it overwhelms the amount of electrolytes you have. Your body has to just urinate it out because your body has to have homeostasis. So that the regular drinking of smaller amounts of water is recommended in Ayurveda, which is the Indian medicinal system, and it's definitely recommended now. Another thing that I would say for the waters is I do use an electrolyte. So I found it's hard to find an electrolyte that doesn't have sugar in it, but I found an electrolyte that doesn't have sugar in it, and there's also recipes to make them at home if you can find them on the internet, because basically it's like potassium and sodium is what you need, and that in the proper in the proper levels with the amount of water you're drinking will allow your body to process that water better, because the body has to have a certain amount of electrolytes for the level of hydration. And then the teas, there are so many different wonderful traditional uses for teas that I really didn't know, like chamomile. They talk so much about chamomile, and I was like, oh, all I knew is like, it sort of tastes like apple, and you should drink it if, like it's good to drink at night because it's not made of tea. It's a tisane, so it doesn't have the caffeine in it. So that's why you drink it at night. That's all I knew before I read, these wonderful books and saw the traditional uses of all these herbs. And I feel like if you're a tea person and you're already enjoying drinking tea, it's a good way to get hydration. It's a good way to use these plants to help your body recover from surgery. And it's plants that you can grow as you're planning to have the surgery. You can grow chamomile and harvest it. You can grow lemon balm in your garden and then harvest it and put it in a tea. Like I have mint in my backyard, in the balcony, and you can just pluck some mint, fresh mint, and get that, you get that smell and you get the taste of the mint tea in the morning, and you just feel like it's something really wholesome that you're doing for yourself, right? It's not like just taking some pills and having a hamburger. It's like you're nourishing yourself, like you're using the wisdom of your ancestors to heal yourself.
And you feel so, when, like I said, when I turned the corner of making homemade, batches and batches of the homemade soup, right, with no salt, you just feel so much lighter and you feel so much better. As far as the water is concerned, I have been drinking nothing but water for the past 2 months. I haven't had much teas or anything. This water makes me feel better, even just plain by itself. But I admit, before I got sick, I was really bad into sodas, even the diet kind. And that was, I knew it was bad, but I was still, drinking it.
Yeah.
And I just felt so much better. I just feel so much better now with doing the waters and the occasional tea, just to vary it up a little bit. Yeah. But I don't know. I love all your books. You're one of my favorite authors because I like the size of the books. They're small, they're succinct, and the way you write, I feel, is very straightforward. And you always share like a personal story that goes along with it in the forward. I kind of like in this particular book, I like the questions at the back regarding journaling and stuff. So I thought that this is where maybe we cut off the recording and talk about those questions, with the person that we have in the meeting, unless you want to cover anything else before.
Let me just end with one story.
Okay.
So I was at a conference for a Health at Every Size conference like 2 years ago. And I was sitting with a woman who is Native American. She's indigenous. And she was talking about how to improving health on the reservations. And she was talking about how to approach it, with no guilt and no shame. And what she saw that really worked was they were trying to replace soda with another drink, and they were trying to replace soda with water. And she found, I believe the story went, according to my recollection, one of the young kids from the reservation was saying, you know what, this is how I got this going. Like, you taught us in class about all these teas, all these, and how to use our native plants, how our ancestors showed us all these things that we use in our diet. And she's like, it was a boy or a girl, I'm not sure, but the child was like, when my mom gets home from work and she's so tired, what we would usually do is like, she'd usually drink a soda. But what I'm doing now is like, I'm old enough that I can get the water in the kettle and like make her a tea that you showed me how we make all these drinks, and then I can give it to her. And that's how I'm helping her after she's, after she's in this busy day. And the mom was saying, actually, it makes her feel better to have the child give her this and to drink the warm beverage because of all the emotional connection and the historical ancestor connection of these beverages. And it was something that was easy to change in the diet once you got that kind of partnership together, that the child is able, to help the mom and be a part of the family and bring their culture alive into another generation.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
Isn't that,
wonderful.
yeah, I love that
That's a
story.
great story.
That's so great. So
Wow.
it was a pleasure for me to be able to put these things together in a book and bring them forward. And what I really wanted, part of the focus of the book was to look at the quality nutrition information that we know from Western medicine, and then to also partner it hand in hand with what our ancestors have given us as far as the culture we live in now and the culture that we're from, and what are they saying how do we treat the person who's sick? How do we take care of them? What do we eat? How do we, fulfill not just our nutritional needs, but like our soul? And I know for me, when you eat the food that is from your culture, that you have those memories and bring it forward. And it's like, I know some of the recipes that my grandmother gave to me when I was sick, when I was a child, and I think of her every single time I do that. And it's like a way to keep her memory alive.
Yeah. A way to keep the legacy alive within your family. I think it's so beautiful. Because I think everybody does that, whether they acknowledge it or not.
Yes.
It's just part of, I think it's part of being human. We have those memories, or even the smell of a certain food. I know personally, like I'm not a cook by any means, but the main things I know how to cook are the things that my grandmother showed me how to cook.
Yes.
And they're not the healthiest thing either sometimes, but like that chicken soup and like enchiladas and stuff like that. They're just really comfort foods. Basically is what it is, comfort food. So, well, thank you so much for being with us.
You're welcome.
For this part of the recorded Zoom. I'm going to go ahead and cut off the recording, and then we'll discuss, with whoever's in the meeting. Thank you so much.
Bye.